right, we're back. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us on GPS to God. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe wherever you happen to listen or watch. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those other podcast apps that you may listen to. You can also catch us on YouTube by typing GPS to God in the search bar, or just go to youtube.com/c/GPS to God. And make sure you hit that bell if you want to get notified when new content is posted. Please reach out to us at our email, podcast@parkwaybc.net. That's podcast@parkwaybc.net. Let us know topics you want to hear about, debates we can settle. Ryan still doesn't watch movies, but, life advice, we want to hear from you. If you're listening or watching from outside the United States, let us know. We'd like to give you a shout out. India, Russia, Dominican Republic, Canada, South Africa, El Salvador. What's some other ones? That's the ones I can remember off the top of my head. But wherever you listen to, even in the United States, we still want to hear from you as well.
Of course.
New episodes come out every Monday, and we have an Instagram account now, boys. GPS to God. Get on the Instagram, check it out, see some behind-the-scenes stuff, and maybe some humorous content if you have a dry sense of humor like me. But today we are so blessed to have with us Mr. Rudy Kalis. And that's going to take me a second, but I'm going to read off. Just a couple. 4 regional Emmys for Outstanding Broadcasting, a Silver Circle Award presented for Outstanding Achievement in Broadcasting, 15 Associated Press Awards, and he was voted Best Sportscaster in Nashville 25 times. I don't know if all that's true, those numbers. I got that off the internet, but
he still is the best.
Why would it be a lie?
He still is the best.
I'm just saying you got to be careful what you pull off the internet sometimes. This did not come off Wikipedia, though. I trust this website I got it from. So I know those awards are true. I just didn't know if the numbers were true. But all those numbers and more, I'm sure. But Rudy, thank you very much for being here. We are so honored that you are in the hot seat.
Well, you're kind, Daniel. Nice of you to invite me.
Well, we appreciate it. Rudy has had, I don't kind of the American dream life, I guess, if you were to go with that. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and how you and your family came to America?
Oh, see, you've given them little hints and stuff. I worked in the toy store for a long time. That's what we always call the sports department. But since you've been dealing faith, one of my favorite proverbs is 16:9. In his heart a man plans his way in life, but it's the Lord who directs his steps. So I always like to talk to people about we're a product of the shadows in our past, the things that happened to us, the people that we met, and where we came from. And I came to this country as an immigrant with my parents when I was 5 years old from Germany. Came on a ship through Ellis Island. Couldn't speak English. It was a mission, a Lutheran mission in Wisconsin that sponsored us. So that's where we had to go to, and that's where I grew up in Milwaukee.
Wow.
Movie stuff right there. That's the American dream coming through Ellis Island, and I mean that's a Disney movie. So what got you interested in broadcasting?
Because I knew I'd never be good enough to be a professional athlete. I was I like some of the conversation we had. I like asking people where they've been and what they've done. I mean, I wasn't a particularly good student. I wasn't a very good student at all in high school, and then I tried college for a year. Wasn't good enough to go to a regular college, so I went to a tech school, a 2-year tech school. But after 1 year, I had a 0.94 grade point average, and a draft.
Is that bad?
And a draft notice. My problem was that right across the street from the school was the YMCA with a good pool hall in the basement, and I hustled pool and did that. So I flunked out, and I had a draft notice, and I enlisted in the Air Force because Army. I said I don't know what'll happen, what's going on. It was Vietnam era. And I love airplanes, and the recruiter, I said, I want to be an air traffic controller. Certainly, son, sign right here. And so
got him.
Got me. Took the plane down to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, got off. Tech sergeant met all 125 of us, cussed us up and down, said, every one of y'all fixing to be military police. And I said, what? Shut up. Yes, sir. So I spent 4 years, and you grow up. You grow up in different stages, and 4 years made a difference in my life. And I got out, and I had the GI Bill. and I went back to the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, the regular school, big school. And I said, I'd like to. And he said, certainly, Mr. Kalis, you've been a veteran. We'll just go get your old transcripts. But they took me on final probation. And I took a radio production course just to kind of get in the swing of studying. And I said, man, there's a little ham in there. And so all of a sudden, I finished 4 years and 3 years because I went all year round. I said, if I ever quit at summer to get a job, I might not come back. I know me. Yeah. And so I just hustled it and wanted to get in sports, and it worked eventually.
Wow.
I will say Rudy came in the door, and I met him. We shook hands, and I had to go get something off the printer, so I let him entertain himself, which was very gracious on my part. But he walked straight to the pool table, so I believe he can hustle. I believe he can hustle somebody.
It's a nice table.
So watch your wallets when you walk downstairs past the pool table. So in the Air Force, what was your job in the Air Force?
We call them AP, Air Police. So we marched around airplanes on flight lines and at front gates and brought people in of that nature and such. And in the last year, I was on an atoll out in the Pacific Ocean. It was Johnston Island. It was 900 miles southwest of Hawaii. It was a half a mile wide and it was a mile long. It was nothing but a refueling stop. And when Apollo 11 landed on the moon, they came down near Johnston Island. And President Nixon on Air Force One landed on Johnston Island. He went out to the aircraft carrier, and I was one of those military police who guarded the Air Force One, like who's going, we're out in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, I guarded Air Force One.
That is too cool.
That's very cool.
Yes.
Did the astronauts, they didn't come back through there? Or
no. They went out to the aircraft carrier, and from there were flown back to the States and had to be incubated and all that sort of stuff. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That is. So you're out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and you come home.
Yeah.
How do you get into the media world, the new broadcasting?
Well, like I say, I went to university. It's called UWM, Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Bruce Pearl was there before he went to the University of Tennessee. Yes. And so that's how I got involved in broadcasting. If you're a sports fan and all, I got to do the play-by-play for the UWM Panther football and basketball team. Football team was miserable, and we did it from the second floor of the biology building, opened it up. And my color man, people who you got to know sports understand, was Bob Euchre. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he had just retired from playing, and he said, I want to get in broadcast. So he and I spent a football season together on the road. I'm telling you. He's interesting guy. A lot of fun. So, but those kinds of stuff, and after I finished it off, and then you think about yourselves. You send out resumes. I mean, I made a montage out of the rejection letterheads from all the television stations that said thanks but no thanks. And I finally got a call from a news director in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and he said, "I've got a job opening for you if you want it, but it's not to be in sports. It's not to be on the air. You're going to be an assistant producer." And he said, "You want it?" And I said, I'll take it. And I've always told people, young people, I've had so many interns in my career, and I said, if somebody offers you a job, you take it. And then show me you can be there on time. Show me I can trust you. Show me, and then you can talk yourself way into, once you've proven yourself, into other things. So I took it, and every chance I got, I'd say, "Can I go out and maybe help you out in sports? Can I do this and that?" And so I did that. And at the time, I was a news reporter after a while, and did some weekend sports. Ran the film processor. Wow. Had to go in the dark room because they shut everything on film, and I can still close my eyes. And you have to take all the little reels and you put it onto a big reel. It has to put 5 splices that have to hold this thing together, and it has to be perfect because you put it on the big reel, and then it goes through all the chemicals going through the rollers. And if it ever gets caught, you've got 10 seconds to get that thing rolling again, or you will lose the emulsion, and the entire newscast would go gone. So I would be sending in there. I'd run the film processor, but I would be writing a sports script while I kept looking at the film processor for the weekend sports on an you guys know what a typewriter is, right?
Oh yeah, I know that.
But it's crazy because you get more and more younger. You did what on what? It's a typewriter? What's that? So that's what I did. And I was there about a year and a half, and, you look for opportunities, go somewhere else. You guys did it in your life. And the sports director one day got mad at everybody and quit. And I'm making $8,000 a year. And I said, man, if I ever make $20,000 a year, I'm quitting. I'm retiring. That's all I need. I'm good.
Right.
Who can I do this? And they're caught off guard. We don't know what to. And they hired a consultant agency that worked with television stations around the country. And he said, you can fill in. So I got to fill in for a month. I did it every single day. This was my big shot while they brought in other candidates and did stuff. And at the end of the month, two guys in a suit called me in a room. And they said, Rudy, you ought to think about getting out of broadcasting because you're a friendly enough guy, but I don't think you're just not aggressive enough. I don't think you'll just sink. Here's what you do, and you think about this with yourselves. I think a lot of us, depending on what people said to us growing up, because my father is immigrants, my mother and father. My sister got straight A's. I mean, if I was a kid now, I'd be on Ritalin. I mean, because I couldn't concentrate on anything. I was a dreamer in space and got terrible grades and all that. And my parents, to try to motivate me, would say, "What's wrong with you, Rudy? Are you dumb? You're never going to amount to anything." And I guess I must be dumb. Then I got to high school and played a lot of basketball. My senior year, I was captain of the team, and we were third in state. And I remember the coach. We had our 50th high school reunion. We all talked about it. I never once remember him telling me I did a good job. I either did exactly what he told me to do or he dog cussed me up one side, down the other. So these things stay in you. You guys know. Think about your lives. They stay inside of you, the things that people tell you, and that's a lot of people. That's with a lot of us. There are other people who were fortunate enough to have somewhere growing up, either a teacher or a parent would say, you're magnificent. You've got a mathematical talent that's remarkable. You've got a musical. Someday you're going to be great. And when I was about 60 years old, I thought about it, and I said, there are a bunch of us in this world who have spent and will spend our whole lives either trying to prove somebody right or prove somebody wrong. I go in those NFL locker rooms. I was in the Titans locker room all the time. I can't tell you how many of those guys said, people thought I'd never amount to anything, and I was an incredible motivating thing. But some people, it just breaks down to nothing. And so for me, when those guys told me, Rudy, you ought to get out of broadcasting, I was, I'm right back to dad. I'm right back to the coach. I'm not good enough. So I think I've spent my whole life trying to prove to myself that I'm not, that I'm okay, that I'm not, that I'm worth something. So it's just interesting to think about their lives. Whenever I try to talk, or even y'all, I hope your minds are working on that, and people who may watch. Think about your life, because that always dictates some of the reasons we do things, and so it works on. So I sent resumes out. They hired a guy. I taught him what to do or helped him. And then I sent resumes out. Well, that's when you find out. Another thing you guys know. You find out how bad you want it. Either you tuck your tail and you quit, or else, and boy, and I sent resumes out, and I made a whole a list of stations at a certain level, which size market, and sent a resume. And all of a sudden, I got a call from Nashville, from WSM. It's the old radio station, WSM TV. And they saw a tape of mine. I said, I wish I was still around somewhere, because I think I was terrible, probably, sweating like crazy. And so they hired me over the phone. What? And I came down to Nashville, and I tell people sight unseen. I've never been down south. I thought y'all didn't wear shoes. I said, I'm going to stay in this one-horse town for a year or two, and 48 years later, this is man plans his way, and Lord directs his steps.
What year was that you came to
I
Nashville?
came here in July of '74.
Wow.
It was not much more than a one-horse town probably back then.
No, it was great. But I was young. I was full of myself. I had a luxurious head of hair. I thought I was pretty good looking, We go through that. And then you walk around somewhere and somebody say, aren't you that guy on television? Hey, nice of you to notice. Let's do lunch. You get full of yourself. Anybody in any job. It cracks me up. I'll go through a McDonald's or something. And the little kid that's on the piano, all of a sudden has got some authority. Can I help you? And it happens to us.
So when you came to Nashville, were you a Christian already? Or were you walking with God then?
I went, my parents, because it was a Lutheran church that had sponsored us. So I went to a Christian grade school and a Christian high school. All of that. And the reason that my parents, I talked them into letting me go to the Christian high school, because my sister went there because we had a good basketball team. I don't know how they paid for it. They did not make a lot of money. That's one of those things. My parents were both gone And I was so full of myself, I didn't ask, how in the world did you guys make ends meet, But they did, and I did that. But when I went in the service, and I'm like 19 years old or 20 years old, I really didn't walk back into a church because we all look good in church on Sunday. Yeah, hey,
right.
brother, love you so much. But then they, cuss you out because they cut you off, or the preacher's going too long, and that football game's starting at noon, and it's just two different worlds, and I didn't want to be around the phony of it, so I left. And that was my life. And I came to Nashville. I was here for 4 years. I worked with a wonderful man. He way before y'all's time, Paul Eels, and he was just so considerate to people. He was a wonderful example to me. But then one day, Paul comes up to me and said, Rudy, I got a job offer to be the play-by-play man for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I think I'm going to take it. I'm 31 years old. And I said, gee, Paul, I hate to see you go, buddy. Because I was always under the pretense that if I'm in the right place at the right time when the right job opens up, it's mine. I'd be the best old boy you've been around in your whole life if you could do something for me. Now, I might talk about you like a dog behind your back, but nobody likes a wimp. You got to be tough to make it through in this world. And so I played that game. And again, they didn't hire me. They hired consultants, put them together, and they didn't hire me. I'd been here 4 years. I'm 31 years old. And it crushed me. It goes me right back to that other stuff. And that's the kind of stuff. I've never had I don't have the drug difficulties or things of that nature, but pride. Because, it's an ego business. You have to have a certain amount of pride to do the work that I did, but when it gets all consuming to you, you got to be somebody, especially men. How long does it take us to ask a guy, say, what do you do for work? And they tell you, now you're saying to yourself, I think I make more than he does. I think I'm a little better than he is. I mean, we just size each other up all the time. We were circling each other. And again, I'm down on my knees. And then one day, it just crushed me. Because everywhere I'd go, people say, Rudy, why didn't you get that job? Well, I didn't want it. And it's just, And I'm driving down the road here in Nashville, downtown, what's called Trucker's Turn, on 40 downtown, on the ramp to head west towards Memphis. I'm pounding the steering wheel in my car, and I'm saying, God help me. And 3 days later, I used to occasionally go to the Green Hills YMCA and play basketball at noon. A couple, for an hour or so with some cool guys, and then I'd get something to eat and then leave. Well, I did, and I went into a little place called Joe's Village Inn, which was right across the street from there, a little dive for eating a hamburger. And there are people all in the place, and this black man in a room full of white people walks over and sits down next to me. And I say that for a reason, because we're all brothers, and that's so. And he didn't know me from Adam. He didn't know, he wasn't from Nashville. He said, you all right? You look like something's troubling you. No, I'm fine. No, well, you all right? And we start talking. I even called us. We're slow at the work, and I just stayed there for an hour and a half. And he said, I'm going to call you tomorrow. He did. We went out to lunch. He told me about a God that loved me, Jesus Christ, all these things that I'd heard and grew up with, but didn't have any meaning to me. Boom, he's telling me again. But now all of a sudden, you don't find an atheist in a foxhole, because when something goes wrong, everybody, oh, God help me. Well, I'm at that point. And he does lunch the next day, and the next day on October 10th, 1978, at 12:30 at a window seat at a restaurant. Now it's the Tin Angel. It used to be down on West End Avenue. He's sitting there, and he said, would you like to pray and ask Jesus Christ to be the Lord of your life? I said, sure would. So he held my hand, and one eye open. I don't know what's going on, and he prayed with me. And I didn't walk out of there in OD on my own goodness. God did two things. Number one, instantaneously, he changed my mouth. Not that I cussed all the time, but man, you're around sports, stuff comes out in the middle of it. Boom, and all of a sudden I couldn't GD, and it just went a desire. I had this burning desire to know about this God I'd given my life to. And I said, well, I'm going to stick with it until you prove yourself wrong or whatever. And now it's 42 years later. And God, and I always laugh and I say God had a sense of humor, because he said that boy's still a little cocky. I believe I'll snatch the hair off his head and I'll turn the rest gray, and I'm no longer just another pretty face. And so that's what he's done. He's taken all this period of time. It just blows my mind to think back what he did.
So that was the second time that you got kind of, I guess, passed over. Did you while you were there, did you I know you're upset. Did you send out your resume, and did you think about leaving at that point when they brought on the consulting company?
Well, it wasn't long after that I'm with Jim, and then with him, and 3 days later I gave my life to Christ. No, I didn't think. All of a sudden I had something else that I had to spend my time with, and I got involved in a Bible study, and I got involved with men of faith, and it was different. I saw the world differently. I'll tell you what, the very next day, my best friend and I, or maybe 2 days later, we go out to Percy Priest Lake. He's got a fishing boat. He likes to fish. I just ride along and wet the line or something. So we're out there in the water, and he said, "Man, what's happening to you? There's something." I said, "Let me tell you what's going on. I don't quite understand it." And so I tell him about what it is. And we're fishing, and we get back into a little cove area, and it gets to be about 4:30 or so. And he said, "Well, let's go back." And he cranks on it, and the motor won't start. Oh, man, well, there got to be something wrong here. Now, there's nothing but marsh and all that stuff all around. Here I am, 2 days old, and I said, "I'm going to show you how powerful God is." I said, "Lord, help us to get out of this, and you show him that you're a God." And I'll be 30 seconds later, this big boat comes around the corner, pulls in, and says, "You guys all right? Need any help?" I'm like this. They throw us a line. He's got a pretty good sized boat, so it had to be bigger than that. All the way in, I'm going, yeah, and we cruise that, cruise in that way. So,
what a story. That's
so
awesome.
God, all those things were meant by Him. I think when you're a young Christian, you get incredible things that explode around you, because God, it's like shocking a pool. At the beginning of summer when you wanted to purify it, God will go there. That's why He did miracles for His own disciples, so they could see and say, "My God, listen to." You read the book of Mark. It's like they really don't even know who He is. He just asks these questions. He tells them about I'm going to die. They don't know. They're talking about which one of us is the best and all that stuff. But then they got it afterwards. When He rose from the dead, boom! All of a sudden, all of that exploded. So away we went.
Yeah.
You're a celebrity. You're known in Nashville. How does that, when you are recognized on the street, how is that ego? Did you have a battle ego of that changed when you started walking with God?
I think I was always a pretty good guy. I mean, I like people, so I never had any trouble. I never had trouble with people coming up to me and that sort of stuff. You really want to be the same person. I always, in my broadcast career, wanted to be the same guy that hopefully that you see on television is the same guy you'll meet if you're out. I don't want to be two different people. So that part was not. But what happens to you is you become very perceptive, because I'm in the broadcast business. If you're cynical, you guys know, if you're negative, if you're critical, politicians as well. If I shout louder than you, I'm smarter than you are, and it's this whole thing going. And that's not the way God works. So my life became diametrically opposed to what's considered successful in my business. And I'm saying, sheesh, I remember a college coach calling me once at 5:30 and saying, "Rudy, I want you to know I'm going to resign." Really? Newscast at 6. He said, "No, look, you're a good friend. I'm just telling you, I'm got a team meeting at 6:30. Do me a favor. Don't say anything. And, until 10 o'clock, I want to tell them first." Okay. Well, it's about 6:20 or so on another station in town. And we have learned exclusively that Coach so-and-so. And I'm saying, Lord, I'm getting my butt kicked here. What is that? But it's never failed that it hadn't turned around. So what God does is He changes your perception. I began to realize that if I'm cynical and if I'm negative and if I'm critical, it affects people's lives. It's so provocative. And I look in sports. You're either a winner or a loser. You ain't worth nothing. They ought to get rid of him. He can't coach. And I have all this. Now, how do you convey that information? What needs to be. I would always try to do my interviews and let that stand on itself. I wouldn't try to browbeat on people. I don't know. And sometimes I don't know if I did any good or not. But for some reason, I was able to work for 43 years in one place. And I heard Dan Devine, Lou Holtz, when he was a coach at Notre Dame, came to town and he said, "God even loves a fool, and He's taken a particular interest in me." and that's kind of what I felt. I just had to try to be who I was. You can use enthusiasm, you can try to be as honest, and people can sense and feel. The greatest thing you can have is for people to say, "Man, you seem to be the same kind of person. You want to be that same person," and then let that stand and be as it is. So I would try things. I mean, in the years I've gone skydiving. I've driven race cars. I hit the wall, the Nashville Speedway, got 150 stitches in my head.
Wow.
T-boned that sucker. Came around and practicing for a race, and I hit it so hard that I had the full helmet and the neck brace and the heart. Hit it so hard that my face shot forward with a full face helmet and hit the steering and bent the steering wheel on a race car. I've got it at home, bent it.
Wow.
And embedded, it was before I had LASIK, embedded my glasses. I've got a picture of me laying on the operating table with my scalp laying on the table behind me. And the first EMT guy gets to the car, and I go into shock as it kind of happened. And I said, "Do you think the car's going to be okay?" And the guy said, "Rudy's the best wreck we've had here all day." And before he sees all of this coming down, they put me on the back of an ambulance and took me to Vanderbilt. And the guy in the ambulance has pulled this down and is pushing down my forehead. And said, "Rudy, count backwards from 100 by sevens." Y'all try it. I'm going 93, 86. I just want to see if there are any marbles. They get me to the hospital. They call my wife. A guy from the Tennessean newspapers gets sent out to overcome, and he hears my wife talk to the doctor, and she says, "Doc, fix him up good, because when I get him home, I'm going to kill him." But then every guy in here knows you got to bite the dog that bit you. So I want, because I've done all that. A race car, I flew with the Air Force Thunderbirds. I pulled 9.3 Gs. I mean, and why? People say, to this day, I'm still trying to prove somebody wrong, still trying to find out if I'm a coward. It never goes. It'll be a part of your DNA the rest of your life. But God will use it to his glory, because you will be sensitive to other people. I mean, I can't relate to Michael Jordan. Wrote just one book, and a small book, and he said he wanted the ball in the last second. I want it in my hands. I want to let it go because it's in my hand. Man, I would be so stinking nervous. I can't relate to that. But I heard Jerry Rice at the Hall of Fame banquet, the greatest wide receiver of all time, to say, "What made you great?" He said, "I was afraid to fail." Now I can relate to that.
Right.
So those things that you do wrong relate to an awful lot of people, and then you get yourself up. I don't know if you've been watching. Have you watched the Ali series that's been on PBS this whole week? Muhammad Ali by Ken Burns. Man, 2 hours each day. It's fantastic. I interviewed Muhammad Ali when he was heavyweight champion of the world, 1974, I think it was, end of 74. He was going to fight George Foreman in Zaire. He came into the room with his entourage, shook his hand. He gave me this little dead fish handshake. I said, "Oh, come on, champ. And he said, "No, baby, these keep me looking pretty. I don't do this." But every time when he lost and he got back up to do it, I mean, people love those kinds of stories. If you're on time, it's like a preacher. I don't. If you get a preacher that talks to you down from the mountaintop, I don't need to be in that church. Like, he's got it all straight. He's great. He knows it all. And he's going to tell you what you got. No. I'd rather. Some guy telling me I'm struggling just like you are, and so let's do this together. So we go.
Yeah. Would you consider Muhammad Ali being your greatest interview that you've done, or do you have one that's...
Oh, no, he's a joy. I mean, I've been around, be it Jack Nicklaus. I spent a whole afternoon with Evel Knievel,
Wow, yeah.
He about killed me in a golf cart at a golf course because he had him a long neck beer in one hand and flying before they had governors on these golf carts. So I've had, I've met an awful lot of people. I rapped with Shaquille O'Neal at a Boys and Girls Club. They had me on stage with him for an hour.
Awesome.
He said to me, we walked in, he said, "Hey, man, who are you, Eminem's grandfather?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And I wore some bright blue sneakers just for him. He said, "Man, I like your sneakers." And I said, "I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket." Whoa! And so we high-fived, and from then on it was on, and I loved it. And so I've interviewed Michael Jordan twice. He came. So I've had the joy of meeting an awful lot of neat people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody that was a jerk or just totally off-putting?
Occasionally, I can't say anybody specifically because you work. Some people are just in a hurry. You hear that they're two different people. When the camera goes on, they're like this. Turn the camera off. They're all like this. So I really study people. I'm a pretty good listener. And that's why the biggest thing for what you do, in a podcast, I really listen to what people say and then dig down. That's what Ali did with me. So what do you want to do? How long you been here? Where do you go? Where'd you grow up? What are you doing? He's looking right at you. The eyes are the mirror to your soul. You know, how many people are going to talk to you? Okay, guys, they're all over the place. Right. So be real interested in people, and I do that, and then you kind of get them back. The greatest thing you can have somebody say to you if you're an interviewer is that, I can't believe I'm telling you this. You know,
makes sense.
Then you've gotten them to a point where they feel so comfortable with you. Now you can ask tough questions, but you can do it in a dignified manner. You know, and don't pretend you know everything. When the hockey team, Nashville Predators hockey team, came here, I grew up in Wisconsin. I skated with figure skates on the ice lagoon, you know, and so I didn't play hockey. So some of the rules and all, I look at it like, okay, that looks like a 3-on-2 fast break, and he's not looking at the puck, so that's like dribbling without looking at the ball. But somebody's trying to knock his block off. Holy cow, this is great. So you know, so I would go up to guys and say, look, teach me this, you know, tell me about offsides. And it's the most naive question. And because you don't pretend to know anything, all right, so they do it. I say, oh, great, thanks a lot. So if you're going to be a man of God, it's the spirit with which you do your work. If you're so insecure that you need to be a know-it-all, they can tell, you know. And people can tell on the other side of the television. You guys can watch. You see someone who speaks to you, and they've got all of this stuff. And I would tell young reporters all the time. They stand out. I said, talk to me. Don't report to me. You don't ever talk like that when I'm talking to you. But when you get on television, I have to tell you that. Come on.
All right.
So it's not brain surgery. It's just being interested in people.
Wow. So any of your interviews that you've done, is there anyone where like you were kind of surprised, maybe like you didn't know they were Christian, and you maybe had that conversation with them in your interview? I
haven't really, specifically with people. You know what I do? I would, especially in the Titans locker room, okay. I would walk around to guys who I got a sense of, and just without a camera, and which is harder because they think we're the enemy. So all you want to do is hear something, or what are you hanging around here for? Or you want a phone number so that I can get this and that. So it would take me longer. I would just say, hey, how you doing? Where'd you grow up? Where are you from? Now, after a while, they start to open up a little bit. And you say little things like, well, you sound like a man of faith. You know, I don't say to them, you know, brother, do you know Jesus? Well, right. You know, that's what your heart says, but you ease into it. You know, you don't talk you're not preaching to the choir. You're talking to guys that are walking around the edge of the pool, because there would be guys that are walking around with big old crosses and talking like you know what. See, that's interesting. You know? Yeah. And so they, matter of fact, well, yeah, I've got this and that, really, you know, and then it opens a conversation. Yeah. Then it's another time, and then you got a whole season. We're in there during football season 3 or 4 days a week. I would begin to look them up. Some would become friends. Chris Sanders, former Titan, did a Sunday night show with us. He's like a brother to me. I call him my adopted son, you know, because I just love him. But then that's how you spend that time, and you find out where their faith is at. It's hard for me to imagine. If I'm 23 years old, and I've signed a multi-million-dollar contract, and I walk out that door, and there's young ladies everywhere and people all around everywhere. I'm glad I'm not tempted by that, come past that age, because that's hard. So if you find a guy who's willing to toe the line honestly and stay with it, wow, I'm so impressed with that. And then you encourage them. I would always say, I would never want to leave. Every chance I get, I would always say, give somebody an honest compliment today, an honest compliment. That means you've studied them. I would tell it to reporters, I really like the story you did, and here's why. Because of that, what you picked, what you did there, the way you brought that into it, and the way you ended it up, and now you're building into other people's lives, and you can do it with athletes. I would listen to their press conferences, and they'd leave, and I'd walk up on the side, man. I said, I thought you really answered that tough question well. You did that with a lot of character. Hey, I appreciate it. But you've planted a seed, and the next week we talk, and the next week we talk, and all of a sudden you've made some relationships. Because ultimately, that's my job. I'm not, you know, sports, which you guys know, I mean, there's a difference between your job and your purpose in life. You know, my job was to be a sports guy. The purpose was to invest in other people's lives in some way. Now that makes you ask different kind of questions. That means the answer that you take, sometimes I would tell them a couple of times I would do interviews, and it was the wrong thing to do if they actually knew back at the station. I would say to them, man, I don't think you should have said that, because that really incriminate, or something to that nature. Oh man, I won't use it. I won't use it. But now, if they had known that back at the TV station, this is breaking news. We have learned, and so you walk a line if you're going to be a man of God.
Yeah.
You're always trying to represent. You don't become a wimp. Almost everybody that ever was an intern with me or that worked for me, one of the things in Proverbs 3, verse 3 and 4, it says in the New King James, let not mercy and truth forsake you, and you'll find favor and high esteem in the sight of God and man. So I said, have mercy in every conversation. Mercy, understanding. Put yourself into their shoes a little bit, all right? But don't be a wimp. And then the truth is, in news, we beat you over the head with truth. Everybody says, we're giving you the truth. Don't beat them over the head with the truth of what it is. You balance those two. You think about that with every story you're going to do, every interview, and most of the time you come out of it, you're being respected by the people with whom you work. So,
Wow.
You touched on this a little bit. Staying at the same station here in Nashville for 42 years.
43
years.
Richard Petty, number 43, yeah.
And that's really not typical from what we as viewers see. Mm-hmm. You'll see somebody for a few years and they move on to a bigger city, better job, more prestige. How was that? How did you go about doing that?
Well, it's a good. I will tell you this, that times have changed. Millennials nowadays, from all that I've read, will average 15 jobs in their career.
Wow.
That are millennials, because times are different. You might got my daughter, our younger daughter, has had 12 jobs, but always somebody else wanting her. Mm-hmm. And there's something that she wanted to go to, and this was a nice stop. She didn't. I thought it would stay. No, well, then something else. So I can't belittle. I'm a dinosaur in that regard. People won't stay somewhere that long anymore. My dad always said, stay somewhere, and my philosophy is stay somewhere long enough so they can see you grow older and trust you and grow older with you. And that's wherever I go still. If people, man, I grew up with you, which is a wonderful, soft feeling, Mm-hmm. That's nice. And I said, how old are you? He said, I'm 45. Man, okay. in that regard. So I'm not sure. Where were we going with the rest of
Staying in Nashville, staying at one job.
Well, there were times in there. I met my wife here, and she was from here, and so but there's a little part that says, should I try it? And I tried a few places, had a few nibbles from people, and then got to a point when daughter was born here and children here, and so you want to begin to stay. And then here's what happens to you evolution-wise, people that maybe watch. And this happens. You guys are way too young for this, but it happens. We all get to a point where all of a sudden they can get 3 people or 2 people to do the same job that you did, and they can get them for a third of the money. And for me, back in 2004, we were owned by a large a company that had like 12 stations, I think, around the country. The new CEO of that corporate for all those stations lived in Las Vegas, and he had a monitor watching all the television stations. And he used to call me. He came once and stood in front of us all with a highly expensive $5,000 something, looked like a suit, $1 suit. And he said, my philosophy in life, pardon my French, is to kick and to make money. And I'm smarter than all of you. And we're looking, really, this is, and he would watch in Las Vegas, and on a regular basis, I would get a call, be driving home, and my phone would ring, and he'd, why'd you do that? Why'd you do this?
Wow.
And he was a gambler, because he came in once for a meeting at the station and all of a sudden he says, really do me a favor, give me the top 5 finishers in the Memphis Golf Classic over the last 5 years. See, I know this thing. That means, because you can bet in golf. And if somebody's got a track record in the last 5 years, and I got back to him, looked at him, and I can't find it. Well, about, I don't know, within a week after that, I was called into the general manager's office, and in one 5-minute interview, he cut my salary by a third. He took my title of sports director away, and he told me that I would be gone from the station after December 31st or something of 2004.
Wow.
And they put out an email saying, after 30 years at Channel 4, Rudy is retiring after a great career. And I'm going, Lord, what do I do? Do I scream, or do I shout? Well, the newspaper gets this, sends a reporter and said, Rudy, what is the story there? Now you get a choice. And the quote I said to him, I said, I've preached faith for 25 years. Now I get a chance to put up or shut up with my faith. They've decided to go in another direction. And he got deluged with emails and calls from people and what is going. And the end of the year came, and my door fob still worked, and I'm there. January started, still there, and I don't know, I'm still here. And all of a sudden, a month or so later, he got fired for some terrible emails some racist emails that he had sent out to a bunch of other places. And it's like God said to me, if I want you, there's nobody gonna get you out of there. And so when I retired, I had a reporter ask me, he said, how do you work somewhere for 43 years? I said, just swallow your pride. I lived by the word of God. And during that whole period of time when I was supposed to be gone, and I was trying to, it made me creative. I put a website together and worked on speaking things and tried to make a proposal to be a teacher at a university in town and stuff like that. But Proverbs 25:15 says, by long patience a boss is persuaded, or a ruler is persuaded. I wrote the word boss. By long patience a boss is persuaded, and a gentle tongue stops a quarrel. So I said, Lord, I don't know if I'm the biggest fool in the world and don't have any guts, or if I've got guts, but I'm doing it your way. And so I said, you swallow your pride. And all these people, these wonderful people from all over. You won't even remember. Yeah, I met you in a hallway back 30 years ago, and you said something I'll never forget, and it encouraged me. And all we're supposed to do is just be vehicles for Him,
Yeah.
And God will honor that, And then, you say, what are you going to do after that?
Wow.
What did your parents do for a profession?
Well, my mother and father actually were Russian. During World War II, my father was in the Russian army, was captured by the Germans. My mother was a school teacher in a village in the Ukraine, and she got kidnapped out of that school building because they could both speak German. And so when the Germans were defeated, were being pushed back, they met each other in the southern part of Germany, a refugee area in the southern Bavaria. So that's where I was born, down near the Bavarian Alps. So I speak German with a southern German accent, a Bavarian accent, which is like good old Southerners compared to Northerners, and that sort of stuff. Dad was a master electrician in Germany. Mother, I'm not sure what Mom did or if she worked. But when they came here to the States, Dad couldn't speak English, but he found out about a factory where they hired him on an assembly line. Because Dad could fix anything with his hands electrically, and he worked there 32 years and never had one sick day. I worked.
That's incredible.
I worked at Channel 4 43 years and had 12 sick days, both of them for surgeries. One I tore my ACL, and the other one was when I split my head open. So my dad was my example. You got to see a man to be a man, and so my example, my dad. My mom worked in a shoe factory in the payroll department, bookkeeping. She was a brilliant bookkeeper. Brilliant, I say that because she kept tracking for us to save. See, Germans. He said, you will save. A part of my dad's check every week went as savings. My mother kept track of every nickel and dime that we spent for candy bars. You will save money. You will not waste money. That and the education. Well, you know what they did with me with the education. I was a rebel there.
What is the, relationship-wise, I'm outside of, Channel 4, within town and stuff like that, did you have good relationships with other anchors and everything like that?
Oh, other stations, sure.
Other stations or anything that y'all work well together and all that good stuff? Well, I always wondered how that works with kind of competition-wise.
Yeah. I think Nashville in some ways was somewhat unique because stations would be willing to help each other. There would be oftentimes, if I might be the only one there, I'd hold everybody's microphone. Channel 2, Channel 5, 17, I'd hold everybody's microphone. Here, let me do that. It's another little way to, Lord, this is no big deal. So I think the city was good in that respect, awesome. And such. But you've all got your own thing. And then you get to a point, again, with your age, you guys are not there, but you'll have to make that choice. When I was 70 years old, I said, Lord, I'm healthy. I could kept going in what I was doing. But I said, I don't know. And talked it over with my wife, and you do your planning financially and things of that nature. And it was kind of strange sitting in the news director's office one day and saying, I'm going to retire. You're what? And when the words come out of your mouth, I mean, this is because we're making a good living and doing all that stuff. And so we set a date, a time at the end of 2017. And everybody was saying, Rudy, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You going to play golf all the time? And my favorite verse in the Bible is Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good deeds that he's prepared ahead of time for us to walk in. I said, good Lord will show me. And a month later, I'm at a speaking engagement, and who walks up to me? Tevin Peterson, a man that you know. I said, who was a former intern of mine 25 years ago. I said, Tevin, what are you doing? He said, I work with an organization called Men of Valor. We go to prison. I said, I want to do that. Because I had done stories back in 1984 at the old prison. Did you ever see Ernest Goes to Jail or The Castle or some of those, the old prison that we have here? Yeah. Well, they allowed us to come behind the walls, and they literally had a football game like The Longest Yard. And I mean, these prisoners, they were just prisoners against prisoners with guys with shotguns all around, and they were beating the pulp out of each other just because going to the infirmary is better than going to the jail. And I did a story with that. And I did a documentary on a guy who had been a murderer in there. And I said, sign me up. I want to do that. And the minute I walked in, I said, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. And that's been 4 years now, in that sense, because I had a little street cred, because I'm walking in there, guys, hey, Rudy, how you doing, man? Where's your helicopter? We get 5 of us on that sucker and get out of here, But I can't tell you how many guys I met who said, man, you covered me when I played ball at such and such a high school. And I said, what happened? Well, drugs, man, or I got angry, 5 minutes of anger, 5 minutes of stupid, and all of a sudden they're in there. And so I got involved in a Bible study on a Tuesday, and then we got another one on Saturday morning with other guys, and then said, would you mind going in the gang unit? So I walk in. Now this night you got Crips and Bloods and Aryans and Vice Lords, and they keep them separated, and but they come in and they push you. They push you. What are you doing here, man? You a racist? Who wants to believe in a God who's so egotistical he demands that you love him? Who would kill his own son? And they can read you like a book. They're convicts. They're cons. They can read your body language. They try to literally drive you out. And I loved it. All those years, I said to myself, I spent 45 years all told in broadcasting just to get me ready for that. All these coaches and politicians and stuff had been around. And I love it. It makes you study and do your stuff, and you got to live it. You got to have lived it for all your life. And then you ain't coming back. You come back the next week, and you're there. Man, what are you back for? And then, oh, that's fine. Go ahead, talk. A couple of times they start arguing amongst each other, and I just shut up. And they're arguing. I said, wait. Let my man. How come you're not saying anything? Y'all go ahead and run your mouth. I tell him. I said, if you like what's going on with your life, if it's working for you, that's fine. You going back to your jail, your cell. You like it. You want your kids in here just like you. If all of that, go ahead. There's no problem at all. But if you want to change, if you want something to give you some hope when you get out of here, then we can talk. And then they come back, and all of a sudden, a month or two later, a guy will come up quietly. Because if you're kind, you're weak, So they come to you a month or two later and say, man, I've been praying in my cell, and you know what? I feel better about that. And another guy, and another guy. But sometimes, like one day we had a Bible study, and 10 seconds after the Bible story, huge fight between two guys. One was a leader of a large group, and one was a subordinate who apparently stepped out of line. I mean, blood against the wall. The guards come flying in, and some of the inmates protect us to hold us back to the side. Man, I'm sorry. Apologies. And then we just, so we had to have guards. We didn't have guards in the room at that time, but then after that, we have guards in. And then I started going to meet a man on death row, and that's my whole life. There are men over there on death row. We have a Bible study. I go to death row on Friday afternoon. I can go any day of the week now. I don't know how that happened. I laugh. Oh no, maybe I shouldn't say it, because until they took them forever. Bureaucracy. They thought I was a media spy. I was first rejected, declined to be able to get my credential. I said, what have I done? I mean, the last thing I remember is a speeding ticket on the way to my wedding rehearsal, and stuff. And then some people, spoke up and whatever, and I got that, sir. But in a period of time in there, because the guards, whatever, I was literally sneaking into prison for about a month or so, which is kind of funny, That's awesome. Because you go through 8 different checkpoints when that steel door opens and slams shut till you get inside where you're going. So we do that. And so I can go in there any day of the week to do stuff. But I go to death row either on a Wednesday, on Friday, Saturday in the morning after being with some guys, and then Sunday night we have a Bible study. And I am the spiritual. They have to have somebody on death row with a pending date. They designate someone as their so-called spiritual advisor, who will be with them to the very end if it unfortunately gets to that point. And I'm the spiritual advisor for a man named Purvis Payne, who's getting a great deal of attention right now because he was wrongly accused of murder back in 1987 in a terrible situation in Memphis where he was going to his girlfriend's apartment, in her apartment, and he hears moaning on the other side of the hallway, taps on the door, and opens it up, and there's a woman stabbed in there, and her child was stabbed to death as well, and she's gurgling and asking for help, and he pulls the knife on and blood splatters on him, and he, I don't know, and he doesn't even know he is intellectually disabled. He has a 76 IQ, but he has a heart of gold. He didn't even know how to dial 911. He dialed 411. Police caught him, arrested him. The cops, he's a young black man. He knows how tough it is. Memphis has more men on death row than any other county in the state. Has lynched more people since the 1800s. It's just old. It's just wrong. And so they never looked at his mother screamed. They called him a sexual predator. And his mother screamed, drug test him. They never drug tested him. All those years he stayed in prison. All those years, and the only thing that kept him alive, he tells me, he says, I was born near Memphis, but I was raised by God in prison. Because when you're in a 8x10 cell, he's got this incredible relationship with God. He has had visions in his life as well. And finally, he got an attorney 2.5 years ago that changed everything. She went and demanded and got to go into their storage rooms and found evidence from the crime itself. The woman had fought and all of that. Said fingernail clips. She had scratching, and they finally got a judge to approve doing DNA testing. Well, what happens when they go get the information up? Most of the key information has mysteriously disappeared. They found DNA other than his on the knife itself. It's smudged and all, but his part, because he pulled the knife out, is down by the blade and in the handle, which coincides with him pulling out. He's never lied about what he is. And he was supposed to be executed last April, but COVID, and so now we've got a nationwide, campaign. They've had almost 1 million signatures on a petition to get him clemency. It's just one of those, and I go see him, and he has more. His faith just puts tears in my eyes because of what he's forced to have done all these years. He's never had one write-up. And he's 33 years in prison. Wow. So here I am, and I've been invited to the governor's office to speak on behalf of another man that was a year and a half ago, talk about, and I sat there saying, man, I was in sports for 40. What am I doing talking life and death in the governor's office? But he let him be executed, he stuck by the rules of what it is, and broke my heart, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. No, you got to do one more. And Purvis Payne, and we meet with other guys in there. So that's my life. Mm-hmm. That's the whole scope of everything. Look how think of your life. He takes this little kid from Germany who doesn't know how to speak English, who screws up in school. He does who all his life thinks he's not good enough. He gets told he's not good enough, and mistakes in all his life. But then somehow, here at this point later in life, through the mistakes, that's where you get your backbone, is from what has happened to you in your life. So embrace the adversity. Because that's what'll make you deeper and stronger, and that's why I loved watching the Ali series. It's not over yet, but when he lost for the first time, I'm gonna get back up. And his style is not my style, and he's a Muslim, but that's okay. I'm so judgmental of people. I don't want to be. You just want to be a light for them. And so what you guys are doing here is a light. There's somebody watching overseas who is in some difficulty in some situations, and you guys are giving them hope.
Well, we appreciate that greatly, Rudy. We appreciate you coming and sharing some of your stories from your life and just being a great example for us and for others around the world.
Yes.
We'll end it here in a second, but a bit of levity here.
Yeah.
We had a talk a few episodes ago about fried pickles. We went to.
I like fried pickles.
Well, that's good because we.
What, are you going to give me a plate of them or something?
We don't have any here, but so there's a restaurant in Goodlettsville that my family and I went to, and they had fried bread and butter pickles. So we tried it. It didn't really sound appetizing, but we tried it. We'd never seen them before. They were not good, in our opinion. But Jennifer, a listener, emailed in, podcast@parkwaybc.net. But she emailed in and said she totally agrees those bread and butter pickles are nasty, but she would like to know where the best place to get fried pickles is, or the best place we've had some, or a good place that we may have had some. So
I'm going to leave it to y'all.
That's a tough one.
Do you
That's
like fried pickles? Do you all like fried pickles?
I do.
do, but
I'm trying to think of the last time I had fried pickles.
So I'm going to go with an easy one, and that's Texas Roadhouse. Texas Roadhouse has pretty good fried pickles. But for a specialty thing, Opry Mills Mall, there's a restaurant called Claim Jumper.
Never been there.
I've heard of it.
Their appetizers are great. Huge portions of appetizers. The meals are good too, but appetizers very good there. Large portions, not too overpriced. But that would be my specialty place.
You know, even Zaxby's, you can get fried pickles.
Yes.
You know, I've had them, and they're okay. I'm not real picky. I like the taste of them. So
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. I will have to fact check this, but maybe Cock of the Walk.
Oh, those
might.
are hands.
I think they have fried pickles there.
I'm about
okay.
90% sure. Yes.
That's the best place. It just came to me.
I feel a little jealous now. I like Cock of the Walk. I don't go there often.
Yes,
That
it's
pickled
a
onions.
hidden gem.
My brother-in-law goes there every year for his birthday. That's his birthday wish, is to go to Cock of the Walk.
It's amazing.
Ooh.
So
I used to take
amazing.
my wife there.
It
every
is
day
very
every
good
time
to
for her
eat.
birthday
Yeah.
too.
Where is it?
Near Opry Mills. It's
Oh,
on
okay.
Music
Isn't it?
Valley Drive,
Yeah,
down
Music
past the RV camp.
Okay.
The RV store,
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
that
Right
is.
there, right on the river almost. So,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
It is very good.
Yes.
So they kind of serve platters of catfish and chicken tenders and shrimp and all this fried goodness. So you got to be a little careful though if I order chicken and shrimp and everyone else orders just chicken, it comes out on a big platter, and if you're picky and you fight for food, somebody's going to be grabbing your shrimp. So you got to be a little careful there.
Nice.
If you have a competitive family who
Get 'em fast.
they're counting how many pieces of shrimp everybody's eating.
They
but,
flip the bread. They have
the
cornbread.
cornbread,
Yeah.
cornbread and skillet. They flip it at the tables and stuff. So it's good. It's good stuff. Good
Yes.
stuff.
There you go, Jennifer. Thank you for emailing that in. And if anyone else has any questions, email those to us, and we'll do our best to settle a debate.
So you guys are food connoisseurs and food critics. I like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But Cock of the Walk, Jennifer, go try their fried pickles and let us know what you think.
Indeed.
So, Rudy, we always end with a Bible verse, and if you don't mind, I'll let you give Ephesians 2:10 again, and that's how we'll wrap this deal
Okay.
up.
Ephesians 2:10. 8 and 9 says, "For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is a gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast." Then, for we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good deeds that he's prepared ahead of time for us to walk in, to do. So you just ask, Lord, what do you want me to do? And then just sit back and hang on, maybe. Hang on.
Well, there we go. There's no better way for us to end it than that. We hope you've enjoyed this episode with Rudy, and we'll see you again next Monday.
Thanks for listening to GPS to God. Make sure you give us a rating or review on whichever app you happen to use. Also find us on YouTube and be sure to subscribe to our channel.